straight up. Blackness I aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benscop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benscop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and on the radio and catch the boom song. We boom it up already, we have to boom it up again. Expose and reveal him. Who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benscop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right. Hey, guess what? Good evening. My name is Mark Benchap, and welcome to tonight's edition of Straight Up. And we are going to rock and roll. If our operator can just thank you so much, Lemon. Good evening to all of you. Again, my name is Mark Benchap, and thank you so much for sharing the link. We have a few folks who will be on with us tonight. Shalon Washington, attorney at law. She is going to stop by, make a quick guest appearance, and just disappear. She has a prior engagement, but she will give us a few minutes this evening. Wayne Caesar is he's off tonight. He will be back tomorrow night, or maybe we will. Yes, Wayne Caesar is going to be back with us tomorrow. You know, I usually have my sidekick, so to speak, to assist in terms of the questions and so forth and so on. But this evening we have, as I've said earlier, Shalon Washington, attorney at law, is going to hop by in for a few minutes. And then we have Dr. Rudy Gayan is with us. He's already on the screen there, along with Sister Pinda. They are here to talk about an event coming up in Guyana. And these two have been very, very active with a lot of things in Guyana, the Ghana Day, you name it. Lots of things. They've been very busy. And so I want to salute them. We will be hearing also from Dr. Simpson de Silva, former Minister of Agriculture under the Burnham government, PNC Burnham government. Thanks a lot for sharing the link. Some folks have inboxed me quietly saying they're having some problems with the internet. I wish I can help, but I just can't help at all. Good evening, Dr. Gayan and Sister Pinda. Good evening.
Good evening, my brother, and good evening to all the viewers.
Thank you, and we really appreciate that you guys have taken the time out to be here with us this evening. Sister Penda, how have you been? Long time no see.
I know, I'm doing great, and it's so nice for you to have us on this evening, Brother Mark. Thank you very much, and to all the listeners, we're happy to be with you.
Yeah, we are glad that you have taken time out to be here with us this evening as well. Before we start off with getting into the 1823 and this walk that you guys have, I know you guys are busy with other stuff. Quickly, how have you been, and what are some two important situations happening on the ground that need immediate attention, whether political or otherwise? I'll have Sister Penda take the first go at that question.
Did you get that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, please, could you repeat that, please, my brother? She did
Yes.
not get.
The volume is extremely low for me.
You did ask.
Yeah.
You did ask about if you could give our impression of two situations that happened or is happening at the moment. Either happened or is happening at the moment.
That needs immediate attention. Go right ahead.
All right. In respect to, from my perspective, I think what coming to mind, although I really can't think about any situation at the moment, but I would say that at present now, we need more attention being paid to the poor, unfortunate citizens of this country, in the sense that here we have young people just came out of school, and there's another young people returning to school. That is, school year ended, or the secondary school year ended for many young people, and there's a continuation for others. And I feel a sufficient preparation has not been made for the young people in terms of jobs, training, etc. And the thing that comes to mind now is that I would have liked to see during this period, which is the August period, quite a lot of training opportunities being there for young people, and I'm not seeing it. And that is my take on the thing that is happening at the moment, that I'd like to see something done about it.
Absolutely. Sister Penda, your same question.
Well, for me, Brother Mark, the problem is for me is that I don't see enough being done generally for the people of this country, especially since we're supposed to be in a situation where potentially we're so rich in that we have oil and gas, and the people of this country, we're still suffering in that the cost of living is rocketing. People are, barely making it. And generally, and I would say this without reservation, is that whatever inroads are being made, we as Africans are being sidelined from it. It doesn't the development, and I'm using this with inverted commas, does not reflect the one Guyana that is being spoken about. So you find that things are being done that it's so blatantly one-sided. And for me, it is very, very disturbing, because I would like to see a more uniform distribution of what Guyana has to offer. And that is not happening in all sectors, Mark, be it contracts, be it job opportunities, be it, just name it across the board. It is not happening here in Guyana right now. So a lot needs to be done. This is what I see, and this is how I feel. This is my perspective. Others may disagree. But being here, this is what is happening.
Let me say, Sister Penda and Dr. Gayan, that very few people would disagree with what you just said. Very few. In fact, I agree with every single thing you just mentioned there, both you and Dr. Gayan. But why do you suppose that the folks who are in charge of the country right now are peddling this one Guyana stuff, giving the impression that all Guyanese are benefiting, when in fact Guyanese, there are so many Guyanese, maybe half the population is being discriminated against?
In that perspective, there is a false kind of impression being given concerning Guyana. It is a fact that Africans in Guyana are at the bottom of the ladder, as the Prime Minister Jigan had said years ago. But being there is not the ladder of opportunity. When you're at the bottom of a ladder, there's always chances of climbing up each rung to a higher state. This country, and we can't talk with it on this particular program, but I wish a program could be set out so we can talk about the reality of Guyana. Guyana is a caste society and a feudal society. We got to understand that. And our people are not understanding it because, first, they don't know much about caste. People talking about class. Guyana class plays a very low role in Guyana society. Guyana is a caste society. The second thing is, it's a feudal culture, or it's heading towards a feudal culture. So those two things have to be explained, or else in talking about Guyana, we can understand, putting this so-called one Guyana in perspective, we can, and our situation. So we need to have a program where we can really talk about Guyana in reality, because we only talk about Guyana in surface. I give you an example when I'm saying this. People talk about one Guyana. What are you talking about when you talk about one Guyana? Guyana, if you think about it seriously, if you're talking about people, Guyana only has really one group of people. For example, the Indians in Guyana, India was called Eastern Ethiopia. The Indians in Guyana were Africans from the inception. And we have to understand what happened that changed that. And this is, we can't go into much in this program, but when we talk about one Guyana, we can really talk they're talking something. I don't know where their heads are, but in reality, when we talk about one Guyana, we're talking about depth. We're talking about people. We're talking why people are forced to think outside their own ethnic um, history or ancestral history. And this we can't go into it now. But
I'm
I'm
pretty
telling
sure
you,
it's a
hello?
lot. It's a lot for us to go into it right now. And I do agree with you. Guyana has a lot of problems, lots and lots of problems that cannot be fixed this evening or anytime on this show. But we're attempting to ensure that the problem is fixed by exposing what the reality is on the ground. Shalon Washington, attorney at law. Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Good evening to you, Mark. Good evening to your guests, Rudy. Good evening to all your listeners tonight. Good night to Miss Yvonne Trotman. Good night to everyone else. I wouldn't say the name specifically, but good night to all of you. I've seen your comments. It's a pleasure to be here again tonight, Mark.
And it's always good to have you. We weren't sure when we were going to have you because our operator did say you were busy at your office working on some important matters, cases, but glad to see you. Good evening to all of our listeners as well, Shondell Griffith and the entire crew, Vinetta Seymour and the entire crew. You heard what Dr. Gayan just mentioned, and I'm sure you heard a bit of what Sister Pinda also said about this one Guyana, this falseness of a one Guyana, when mainly persons of African descent in Guyana are being discriminated against. When are we going to get past this, please, Miss Washington? When?
Mark, I don't believe it's possible with the current government for us to get past the apartheid system that we have in Guyana. It's one set of rules for the Indo-Guyanese, a different set of rules for the Afro-Guyanese. And, I think the PPP has to realize that our history is an intricate part of Guyanese history. Without Afro-Guyanese, there will be no Guyana. So to just disregard or downplay the role of Afro-Guyanese is very disrespectful. I don't think they're going to accept where we're supposed to be, which is our history is supposed to be highly regarded among all Guyanese. It's supposed to be taught in the schools. Our local books are supposed to be read in the schools. There's the Afro-Guyanese history books by Dr. Winston McGowan, which supposed to be used at the schools in the school system because those are localized and specifically unique to our own history. And I think until we get to that point where we have a different government that is properly integrated and represents all the different races in Guyana, I think we're going to be at a standstill as it relates to a one Guyana. There could be no one Guyana when it comes to the PPP. The PPP is for Indo-Guyanese, and I say that very clearly, and I do not have any apology for that. Until we have a government for all Guyanese, as we stand here today, PPP is for Indo-Guyanese. They do not respect or represent the interests of Afro-Guyanese.
And Dr. Guyana or Sister Pinda, you heard what the attorney Shalon Washington just say. Let's get your take, Sister Pinda.
You could reply to that.
Yes, I agree with what attorney says. I think she has put it into perspective. We here cannot have one Guyana until, Mark, let's put it this way. I'm not going to sugarcoat this.
Sure.
We have a system in Guyana where one group of people, attorney, no offense, controls the judiciary, controls the economics, controls the police, controls the politics. That's it. So, what are we talking about? It is total control in all these areas. It is, as Doc said, a feudal system. You have a situation that has developed in Guyana here, where even in administering justice, what seems to be justice, you have a tier level. You have one person can commit an offense and they're given a certain amount of treatment for that offense. And the other person who is of another ethnicity and maybe because of a different political persuasion, the book is thrown at them, whereas the other one gets a pat on the hand. And this is the reality of what is happening here. You just have to go through the newspaper. You just have to listen to the news and you will see what the situation is. So I don't know what the situation is. We also have a situation that's developing right now in Guyana, where the African organizations are being targeted. And what has happened is that you have in the decade of people of African descent. Now, this is not anything to do with being racist. This is a UN mandate that was given out. It started on the 1st of January 2015. And that mandate dictated that under the United Nations, people of African descent during a decade which ends in December 2024, that they would be looked into. First of all, the mandate is recognition, justice, and development. Now, you ask anyone in this country during this decade, where was the recognition, where is the justice, and where is the development? Now, we're supposed to be looking into all these areas, which covers our economics, our education, our politics, our spirituality, our civic, our civil. Everything is in that mandate. And when it is not dealt with, we're supposed to report on an annual basis to the United Nations for them to intervene into this event. Several years ago, the working group of experts of people of African descent visited Guyana. One of the recommendations, they were horrified that our history was not taught in schools, period. That was one of the recommendations. To this day, it has never been implemented. Even during the decade, which ends next year, it has not been a thing. So the point I'm making is that even with the decade, the attack goes on. There's no efforts are being made to address any of those deficiencies that exist for people of African descent in Guyana. What has happened is that it's a game being played. You get a group of people, you pull them aside, you give them $1, and then you get them to say how wonderful it is, while the majority of people are left without. And that is the situation as it is currently here on the ground. People's land are being taken away from them. Mark, you saw what happened in Mocha. You saw that. That is ancestral lands being attacked. And nothing has been said about it. It's as if it doesn't exist anymore.
So
Last Sunday, Kojo McPherson had to put his foot down on their ancestral lands, which the Attorney General of this country went up there and told the people of his ethnic group that they can stay on that land, someone else's land, when they have transport for it. Come on. This is the wild, wild west we're living in, and we need to be fair and talk about it. No sugarcoating.
You know, and I agree with you 100%. Let me just welcome also our, he's appeared on our show many times on this show, Anil Sugrim, Pastor Anil Sugrim, who is a PNC counselor out there in Corriverton. And he does have a point that a lot of other Guyanese, other than Guyanese of African descent, which is what we're focusing on tonight, a lot of other Guyanese are being discriminated against because of their political affiliation. I do get your point, Anil Sugrim, Pastor Anil Sugrim. I do get your point. Don't think that it's being ignored at all. Now, let's get back to Miss Washington, as I agree with everything Sister Pinda just mentioned there. Miss Washington, I know you've took time out your busy schedule there in the office. You're not going to be with us for the entire hour, but if we ask that you spend another 10 minutes with us. I don't know when we are going to get over this. There's this civil rights song. It was the national anthem. We shall overcome someday. I have been hearing that since a little boy. We shall overcome. You heard Sister Penda. You heard Dr. Gayan. Again, I ask this question. With all of the discrimination against persons of African descent, our history not being taught in school, but yet recently we heard here Fanali talked about Spanish gotta be in every school. Spanish. He's more concerned about Spanish than being concerned about African history. Talk a little bit about anything that's bothering you that we can correct in Guyana.
You see, I've heard what Sister Pinder just mentioned about the land. You know, the land is one of the most pressing issue on my mind because land is one of the ways which you use to build generational wealth. And as we know, Afro-Guyanese has a history of enslavement. Afro-Guyanese were enslaved. So when they were taken to Ghana, they were taken without any of their wealth, any of their possessions that a person would usually have when they migrate. When the Indians migrated willingly as indentured servants to Ghana, they were able to take their possessions, they were able to take their names, they were able to take anything that they wanted because they voluntarily went to Ghana as voluntary servitudes. They volunteered. That was their choice. But the Afro-Guyanese, on the other hand, they did not have a choice. The Africans were taken by force, violence and force, and taken to Ghana. After they gained independence through emancipation, they had to fight vigorously for that. And they eventually were given their right to be free men and women. And one of the things that they did is they came together and they formed groups and communities and they purchased lands. Some of the villages that we know now, Good Hope, Bachelor's Adventure, a lot of the villages on the East Coast, on the West Bank, a lot of them were purchased by Afro-Guyanese, and their books, I would encourage you guys to read that book by Dr. Winston McGowan, and it was co-authored by by the Honorable David Granger and a few other authors. I encourage you guys to read that book because Dr. McGowan was a historian. I remember when I attended the University of Ghana, he was a lecturer there. It tells the story of the history of Afro-Guyanese. And the history of Afro-Guyanese is really important because it's one of the foundation of our nation. So even though the Amerindians were there before us, their lands by and large remains untouched because no one is going into the interior and disturb their villages. But the Afro-Guyanese, on the other hand, they purchased these villages where they settled, and the land is important to us for us to build generational wealth. And if the PPP has no respect for the way we are going to build our generational wealth by passing those lands down from generation to generation, the PPP needs to be removed from office. They cannot come and disrespect Afro-Guyanese culture. We have worked hard. We deserve what we have earned, which is those lands, because the Afro-Guyanese, after they became free people, free men and women, they pooled their resources. They started working, and whatever money they were paid, whatever wages they gained as a result of being free and working, they pooled it together. They purchased these villages. And I think it's a disrespect. It's a slap in the face of every single Afro-Guyanese, wherever you are. And this is not to disregard the rights of Indo-Guyanese, but this is specific to Afro-Guyanese and the way they're being treated under the PPP government. The PPP dishonor our culture. They do not respect us. And I've heard one of them made a speech on Emancipation Day. I was so disheartened by that speech because he said it's not about emancipation, but it's about how we can build wealth together. But sir, how can Guyanese build wealth together when the PPP is taking those lands that our ancestors purchased over many years ago? The ancestors of Afro-Guyanese worked hard and purchased those lands. And now the lands are being taken by force
by the PPP. So, and one of the things that Sister Pinder did mention, and which I want to reiterate, is the fact that our history, Afro-Guyanese history, must be paid attention to in our school system. We must not just teach Caribbean history, but what about the contributions of the Afro-Guyanese? My voice.
Yeah, that's okay, Miss Shellen Washington. You did indicate that for us. It's all right. We'll just remove her from the screen for a quick minute there, while she take a quick a couple seconds to take care of herself. Sister Penda, Dr. Gayan, take a shot at what you just heard there, that
Yes,
African descent are not being respected.
indeed, indeed, Brother Mark, I agree wholeheartedly with every single thing Attorney just said. I really agree, and I'm very, very glad that she has, touched on the things that she has. Because, Brother Mark, we worked so hard. As Doc would usually say, we were dragged here, and we had to work to build the infrastructure, first of all, of Guyana. Having done that for over 200 years without pay, having done that, we then went on through all our revolutions and all the struggles, brought about emancipation. And I'm glad that Attorney touched on that, because this is the period where we are celebrating our emancipation. Emancipation was brought about because of the struggles of our foreparents, because of the hard work that they put in, the struggles. One such struggle was our glorious 1823 East Coast Demerara Revolution. That revolution started at the Bethel Congregational in 1823. This is the bicentennial, Brother Mark. And it is because of that revolution that we were able, because of what happened after that, the aftermath, that brought us to emancipation, because we brought the plantation system down to 40% production. No business can exist. So they were forced to give emancipation as a compromise. Now, this year, and Sister is right, our foreparents worked. They had to work 39 and a half hours during the apprenticeship period, free. And it was the after-time monies, Attorney, I'm so glad you brought it up, that they saved, plus what they got from their little farms that they had, that they saved and bought those plantations. So this year, Brother Mark, we are celebrating the bicentennial of the 1823 revolution. And we're doing so on the 18th with a motorcade from Mahaika to Batches Adventure, where the massacre occurred. And once we're there, we'll do libations at the little monument, and then we'll walk all the way to Georgetown, to the parade ground, where most of those leaders were tried, hung, executed, beheaded, and their heads placed around that ground. So yes, Attorney, it is very, very disturbing that for a people who gave so much, sacrificed their lives to have those plantations, abandoned plantations bought, which were later turned into villages, and now to realize that they're being taken over from us. No, we cannot let that happen.
And
We cannot allow that
I'd like
to
to say
happen.
something
Go ahead, Dr. Gayan.
on that
Because,
perspective.
Go ahead.
When we
Because,
talk about our history,
sorry,
we
go ahead.
cannot just take those things that we know from the archives, etc., and without some analysis, First of all, we were here roughly 2025, 1625. I'm talking about up to emancipation, 1625 to 1833, and then 34, it was implemented. Now, during that time, there was not one Indian here, there was not one Portuguese here, there was not one Chinese. It seems then that there's the enemy either in the shadows or somewhere. We have to know who's the real force behind what is happening to us in this country. Remove those people who are those people you call impediments to our progress, and see if our problem will stop. It will not stop. So therefore, we have to deal with our problem on two stands. One, those humbugs, because the people who are causing us a lot of problem right now, that we can see they're humbugs. The real problem are not even dealt with. And we have to say to ourselves, we need that time and space to do it. We're given, yes, programs such as this, etc. But we need to meet as we used to meet years ago, when in the younger days, and we have some hall or the other that we could reach at. We don't have those facilities. Because we don't have those facilities, we can make errors in our conclusions to our problem. I give an example. People don't want to know that, look, during the time when we were imprisoned, and we were never slaves, during the time we were imprisoned on those plantations, which were, in all respect, the world's first private prison industrial complex, because we were in prison, because we had wardens guarding us. Amerindians were paid to prevent us from leaving those prisons. And when we leave, you have some were given bounties to bring us back dead or alive. But we don't deal with that. Not that I want to deal with. What I want to say is, when we remove from those prisons, when we escape, the book said that we were able to build sophisticated living areas with moats, water, moats, and all these things. We plant, etc. The point I want to make is this: those maroon villages or communities, as they were or are called, they were not built in a week. They were not built in a month. Therefore, the area that they were built in, there were no Amerindians or no people living there. We have to take into account. Now, there are quite a lot of those areas or living settlements built. Every one of those living settlements belonged to us. We were not displacing anybody. And just like the British who came to this, just like the British and the Dutch who came to this country, didn't ask anybody for permission. We went into the interior, not displacing anyone, putting down our claim to the land. Just like the British and the Dutch, those lands belong to our foreparents. In fact,
if you can stick a pin for a quick minute, I appreciate that. Attorney Shelon Washington has to leave shortly. In fact, she's way over time. Miss Washington, before you go, ma'am, I wanted you to touch on the fact that the installed PPP regime is ignoring legitimate African organization with legitimate African and proper African Guyanese representatives and replacing it with basically hogwash individual. My description of those hogwash people. Just close off on that before you go, Miss Washington.
I believe it would the PPP to serve their own interests, which is just to they want to accelerate their own agenda as it relates to their own people, to Indo-Guyanese, and they have no interest in pushing the agenda of Afro-Guyanese. So therefore, anything authentic that pushes the agenda of Afro-Guyanese, anything that looks to the interests of Afro-Guyanese, anything that is authentic and relates to us, they will try to destroy, they will try to pull down. And I think that's one thing that they're doing by removing these authentic organizations that truly represents our culture and truly knows what they're doing, and replacing it with these individuals who knows nothing about our history, who can't even discuss our history on a public forum with Guyanese people. Because the PPP does not care about Afro-Guyanese. They do not represent our interests. They're for Indo-Guyanese. They're for one group of people. So it's not surprising at all, Mark. And I believe if we allow them, they will continue on that path to push their own agenda and to tear down and to destroy anything as it relates to our culture, to preservation of Afro-Guyanese. I think they follow suit with some other countries that has always, we've always been the ones to be talked against, to be pulled down, to be teared down, to be disrespected. And I think we have the Indo brothers and sisters leading in the PPP, and they have followed some of what the world has been doing to us for too long. And we're saying Guyana is our country. We shed blood for that land there, and we're entitled to our culture being perpetuated through our history, through museums, through our organizations. And we're saying the PPP has no right to try to destroy those organizations. And the Guyanese people has to stand up and fight blood, tooth and nail, and make the PPP understand that these organizations, the authentic ones, are here to stay, and that they are not moving those organizations. I mean, that's my contribution as it relates to that, Mark. I guess I'm going to end off here tonight because I do have to run. I'm so sorry that I can't stay to the end of the program. I have a lot of work, guys. It was a pleasure being here and being a part of the program tonight. Thank you.
We thank you so much as always. People have been asking for your number. I saw some comments there. This is the number. This is where you contact Attorney Shallon Washington. She's located in Brooklyn, 455 Utica Avenue, 718-877-3100. 718-877-3100. Whatever legal problems you may have, medical malpractice, personal injuries, divorce, landlord and tenant. Sorry, guys, that I always have something when I see divorce. Right, but give Shallon Washington, attorney at law, a call once you're in Brooklyn, wherever you are. Give her a call, 718-877-3100. Ms. Washington, as always, thank you so much for your time, though.
And thank you, Mark, and thank you to all the listeners, and thank you to Brother Dr. Guyan and I forgot what Sister Pin. Good night, guys.
Yeah, I share, attorney. What you said was really to the point. I agree with you wholeheartedly on those points that you've made. Without exception, they were all well placed and positioned, well stated. And Brother Mark, I would just like to add that attorneys.
You are with us still, Mr. Suspender.
I'm the only one leaving.
Our attorney has to go, but you guys are here with us.
Yes, yeah. All right. Okay.
Good night.
Bye-bye, attorney, and thank you so much. Brother Mark, I would just like to...
No, we have to go. A safe journey, my sister.
Yes. Brother Mark, I would just like to say that what attorney said was just to the point. Absolutely. That the destruction of trying to destroy our groups, our culture organizations, you trying to destroy the culture of Guyana, Afro-Guyanese culture, and that is so true and to the point. What I would like to say is that I'm asking, with your permission, all the groups to come out and support. As attorney said, your culture has to be preserved. We must honor our martyrs of 1823. And I'm asking everyone who's listening tonight to tell a friend, tell a relative that they must come out on the 18th and support that motorcade and walk in commemoration of the struggles of our foreparents of 1823. Mark is going to be on the 18th of this month, which is next Friday. And we start at Mahaika because that's where the revolution started at 5:30 in the morning, coming down, as I said earlier on, to Bachelor's Adventure. And then from there, we'll do a relay by foot because we'll be doing the walk. So please, everyone come out and support, because if you don't support your culture, if we don't support ourselves, no one is going to do it for us.
And Mark, my
Yes.
brother,
Yes, Doctor.
think about it. People may think, look, why is it he dwells so much about the root of our history? Look into any textbook and see if you see Gladstone's name as it should be written. He was in the 1823, the leader of the 1823 Demerara, East Coast Demerara Revolution. They claim that everybody was shot or killed or something. Gladstone, the main ringleader or the ringleader, was placed on a boat and sent to another country, St. Lucia, sent to another country to do mischief. When you try to get a discussion around Gladstone, nobody wants to know why is it you don't find monuments to him. Now, you don't tell me that they'll do that. They did not want him to be a martyr. So they put up this silly, bogus thing about taking him away. And we are not talking to our interest. Gladstone is our interest. The reason why I'm saying this, the 9th of August, 1834, was declared by Damon and over 700 people in the Trinity Churchyard as our Independence Day. Africans don't want to talk about that. Damon died, was lynched. Therefore, what he did was recognized, but no one wants to talk about that. We need to, secondly, when I talk to people about the Indians from India came to this country, all this concerned the war. Sister P said, focus on the war. But I tell you this, the Indians who came to this country, they came in 1838. We were here since 1625. Not a blade of grass was given to us at emancipation. We proud to say it is true that we bought. But the Indians who came to this country had things bought for them. They came with a culture, they came with the social services intact, etc. And every estate that they really occupied was bought for them. Nothing was bought for us. And we need to sit down and show comparison between the way Africans were treated then and how Africans are treated now. If you don't do that, you won't be able to see the real reason, the plan behind our present situation here in this country. There was a plan. When you're going to bring over 200,000 people into a space with only about 80,000 people, and these 80,000 people were there before the 200,000 people. You're bringing the 200,000 people to suppress, marginalize, get rid of those people who are there before. In fact, the Indians came to this country to make me a non-person, to get me away from this country. Think about the ratio 200 plus to 80,000. I should never been in Guyana. That was the plan. So my brother, we need to have discussions. I mean, we can't go in depth now, but we need to have discussions of our history. But more importantly, I want to show, when we talk about the 200th year of the 1823 revolution, we claim why we call it a revolution, because basically people say revolt, revolt, revolt. And our historians say revolt, but our historian didn't study that social movement properly. The 1823 revolution changed the social relations in this country. When the 1823 revolution caused emancipation to happen, and if anybody wants to go into that at some time, I couldn't go into that. When it caused emancipation to happen, this country then, the laws concerning labor, there were no laws, there were no labor laws. Labor laws were instituted where you could no longer take someone and force him or her to do work without some kind of compensation. When the Indians came to this country, they came with the labor laws intact. We brought those laws into existence, and people don't take those things into consideration enough. I hear people talk silly things like slavery what ended in 1838. It never, from they couldn't, because from 1834 there was a contractual arrangement between workers and whoever is employing them. Before them, there were no contractual relationship. So people don't studying the history of Guyana as it should be studied. They're taking data already there and using the same data, the same terminology to then superimpose upon what is happening now. We need to go into our reality. Anyway, I don't want to go too much into this, but my brother.
That's okay, Dr. Gayan and Sister Pinda. And let's welcome Brother Wayne Caesar, a product of Plaisance, another village that was bought by African ancestors. But before we welcome Wayne Caesar, let me just say that the time has come for frank discussions to be held about African history. Some folks are going to like it, some folks are not going to like it. But the time has come for frank discussions to talk about the real history. I am not bothered about who doesn't like it. Other ethnic groups are free to talk about their history, their culture, and so forth. But it appears to some people that it is a crime when persons of African descent even attempt to talk about their history, their culture, and whatever. I have absolutely no apologies for that. I am too old now, so to speak, to be politically correct.
That's right.
Others are not politically correct, and we have to stop being politically correct when it comes to talking about our history. Brother Wayne Caesar, good evening. I'm sure that you've heard the discussion. Dr. Gayan, Sister Pinda, they're talking about a lot of things that people are afraid to discuss. These two patriots are on the ground in Guyana, and they are not afraid to stand up and say the things that they are saying. I just want to remind people that these two individuals are there in Guyana, and they're no Johnny come lately. I recall when I was at Camp Street, when they kidnapped me and put me there at Camp Street. Dr. Gayan, you visited me many, many years ago there.
That's true.
Thank you so much for being there for me, sir. I appreciate it. And thank you, Sister Pinda, as well. Brother Wayne Caesar, welcome to the show. Anything to add?
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Brother Gayan and Sister
Good evening.
Pinda. Good evening to you guys. Well, listen, Mark, I actually just got on and I, caught a bit of what was being said. And listen, it's accurate. And listen, there's no disputing, what was said tonight. It's the truth. And Mark, it's because the African history is so rich, okay? That's why many seek to try to dismiss it. And, I'm happy that, we still have people who can share our history, keep our history rich and relevant. I mean, it was very heartwarming to hear what was said tonight. And it was quite a bit to digest. But what was said was very edifying, and I'm happy because there's so much that I myself, Mark, did not know. So thank you, my brother and my sister, for sharing. And, we hope that you would continue to share this because there's a younger generation out there who needs to be edified, when it comes to our history, Mark, and where we would have came from. You see, a lot of people are trying to dismiss that. but we're not going to ever forget West Africa and the Atlantic slave trade, because that's where, that's where our arrival would have occurred. That's where our people would have came from. Okay, and it's not to be forgotten. So West Africa do have a very, very big place. There's a big place in Guyana when it comes to West Africa, because that is where we would have came from. Over to you, Mark.
Well said there. Thank you so much, Wayne Caesar. Dr. Guyana and Sister Pinda, again, on the 18th of this month, there's this march. Talk to us again as we prepare to wrap up tonight's program about this event on August the 18th.
Brother Mark, Brother Wayne, sorry. Thank you so very much. As a young person, I'm very impressed with your concern about the Atlantic, what they call the Atlantic slave trade, where they brought us from. And it is very nice to know that you have an interest and that you would like to continue. I hope you continue on that trend. And as a young person, you will be able to encourage others and teach others. Just wrapping up quickly, Brother Mark, yes, we are embarking on that commemorative walk. We're trying to recreate the footsteps of those four parents of 1823. And we'll be walking, starting with motorcade, because it's a long distance. Motorcade from Mahaika to Batches Adventure on the 18th. We leave Mahaika at 5:30 in the morning. The motorcade comes down, picking up all the way from the villages as we come along, Anne's Grove, Victoria, Golden Grove, Paradise, etc. To Batches Adventure, where we do libation, because there's a monument there. That's where the massacre occurred, killing over 200. And then they proceeded to follow them back as they flee to the plantations at the time and continue the killing spree. But at Batches Adventure, we'll be doing libation in honor of those fallen souls. And then we'll continue the walk down to the parade ground where we'll have a rally. So we're asking everyone to come out and support this historic event, because it's the bicentennial. Thank you so very much.
And also, if I can add, if you have any contact in the villages, please help us to be in touch with them, because, yes, we want as much mobilization as we can of bodies. So please make a contact to our relatives and friends in as many villages as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Guyana. We really appreciate the time. And I know on a subsequent program, we can talk about the disrespect of African organizations in Guyana. I know you guys have been having sleepless nights. You have been working tirelessly to ensure that Africans in Guyana, their rights are being respected. I want to take this time to once again salute you guys. But again, Wayne, I know I've asked you this question, sir, about the disrespect of legitimate African organizations in lieu of these Moko Jumbies that popping up on behalf of the installed PPP regime, claiming to represent persons of African descent.
Mark, when you look at the good nature of African people in general, if we have a position of leadership, we lead on a holistic, level where all is involved, all is welcome. And I feel, with what is happening in Guyana and the disrespect to the African people, we have as many Indo-Guyanese in Guyana as we do Africans. Or it might be a little edge in the favor of any one of the two ethnic groups. But The government that is in place right now is a government that is Indo-Guyanese based, though there are some quote unquote, and I have to say quote unquote, Africans that are a part of that government, because I am not sure if those are actual Africans, just based on their behavior and the way they treat the people who are supposed to be their own brothers and sisters. But we have always led, we have always come from a place of being holistic, being loving, Mark, and being caring. And I want us to continue to walk that road. But that being said, Mark, I think it is high time that we start focusing on ourselves, just us as a people. Because it seems as if when we try to be inclusive, we are losing something, because nobody is paying any attention to us and the struggles that we are facing. Like I would have said just last night, Mark, we have to consider just spending our monies in our own communities. This is something that we're going to really have to consider, because this installed government and these massive mega businesses that they have, Indo-Guyanese own mega businesses in Guyana, is not getting it that we are the consumers. Without us, nothing works. So we are going to have to change our posture, and we're going to have to position ourselves, in a position that benefits us once and for all. Because, Mark, it doesn't seem as if anything is ever done to just benefit us. And every other ethnic group does things to benefit just their group. And I think we need to start taking that position, because we are being left behind as a people, because we choose to be all inclusive. And we are the ones who are singled out, marginalized, and treated with no dignity and respect in our own country. And Dr. Kayan would have said something, Mark, about landing 200,000 Indians into the country right after emancipation. Mark, that was done to dismiss the Black people who were not too long ago enslaved by those same Europeans, imperialists. So that alone to show you how much feeling and care they had for our people. They did not care. Okay? The Indians were able to benefit because we would have gotten our emancipation. All ethnic groups in Guyana were able to benefit from our blood and sweat. I think, Mark, it's high time that we start to do some things that just benefit us. I'm sorry. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Wayne, as we prepare to wrap up this evening's program. And can't disagree with what you have said. I want to take this time out, though, to thank Brother Aziz for always being frank. Brother Aziz is from the east, the west coast, Berbice. And Jamal Aziz, good evening to you, sir. Assalamu alaikum. A man who has came under Indo-Guyanese brother whose family came under vicious attack by the PPP. And one of the things I admire about this brother is he's always objective, he's always fair. He understands and he sympathizes with the struggles of his African brothers and sisters in Guyana. And I take the time out to say thank you again, Brother Jamal Aziz, for understanding the situation. Before we go, though, I'd like for Sister Penda or Dr. Gayan to just make their closing remark, please.
Thank you for having us on, Mark. And to the viewers out there, I'm very happy that we were able to come into your home this evening. Thank you again.
And again, thank you, my brother, for having us on. This is a wonderful program, and I hope it continues as long as you want it to continue. And more importantly, since we are talking about us and looking after ourselves, let us spend as much time as we can doing the Sankofa principle, looking back on what we were so we can understand what's happening to us at the moment.
And that we can go forward.
Thank you very much, my brother. And thanks
Thank
to everyone.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. Thank you all, and also, Brother Wayne Caesar. Oftentimes, you take time out of your busy schedule to ensure that you participate on the platform. And I just want to take this time out to say thank you. Any other thing that's happening in Guyana? We know the Madhya, the Madhya Commission of Inquiry. Not much is being said about that, other than 3 persons were sworn in, 3 persons who are set to be connected to the PPP. I'm not sure. Any other thing that's in Guyana that's bothering you at this point in time, sir?
Well, Mark, listen, what's bothering me is that, the government continues to hold their posture. They're going into the parliament and they're requesting monies after monies. And it's funny. Well, yes, not just that alone. There's something else that I want to actually speak on before I even get to the money part of it. Irfan Ali was on a trip to China. And, I find it very, very interesting that though installed, he is still considered to be the head of state. So when your head of state leaves the shores to go visit another country, it is very important for that individual to be transparent to his people as to what that visit would have entailed and what benefits is going to come from that business to the country. But these guys just have a way of leaving the shores and just going wherever they feel like going. Deals are being made, deals are being cut. The Guyanese people are left out of all these different deals that are being cut. And then they just show up back. And listen, I am certain, man, that this government is not just corrupt. They're extremely corrupt. Their behaviors are concerning. Okay, they're not acting and behaving like a government should. They're just behaving like a set of brute thugs that just have the people of Guyana under their thumbs. And this type of lawless behavior just has to stop. And then they're always showing up in the parliament. It's like, if I am in the opposition, it's like I would feel sometimes that I don't even want to go to parliament. Because every time the PPPC show up in parliament is to table a motion to borrow money, right? $61 billion. I think that's the last, borrowing that they would have tabled. That's a lot of money. That is material money. And the funny thing about it, when this money is borrowed, there is no transparency to the people to say, okay, we borrowed this money and here is our allocations. Here is a report. Please go online. We're going to give you a breakdown of the report. It can be found here. There is absolutely nothing. And to the extent we have a new government in 2025, we would really have to go back to find out where these monies would have been allocated. Because if you guys are thinking that you're going to just rip the people of Guyana off and go walking your merry way, you have a wrong thought. All right? Because I speak for the people of Guyana and I represent the people of Guyana, and we will come after you. We will come after you, because what belongs to the people belongs to the people. And what belongs to Guyana should stay with the people of Guyana. You guys should not be lining your pockets and paying off, you understand me, foreigners who would have helped you guys, who would have funded and assist you guys in rigging the 2020 elections. The money that belongs to the Guyanese people should not be used to pay foreign agencies, foreign businesses, and individuals that would have supported you guys. You guys have to find another measure okay, to gain your campaign contributions. You cannot use the people of Guyana monies. And we intend to recapture all these monies. Over to you, Mark.
60 minutes after 10 o'clock, Mr. Wayne Caesar, well said. We can't disagree with anything of our contributors this evening at all. And I've been watching and reading some of your comments there in the comment section as well. We've got to get to a point whereas people, whether they're in government or not, start to respect us economically, politically, or otherwise. And the time has come for us to have frank discussions and stop pussyfooting around or trying to be politically correct. Mr. Caesar, thank you so much as always for your time. Hopefully we'll see you back tomorrow. Again, same place, same time, right here on 107.1 FM.
Mark, one thing
Sure,
I would like
sure,
to
sure.
say before you go.
Go ahead.
I just want, the Guyanese on the ground to know that we will be having, we will be disposing bags at some point, to the latter half of this month to young children in Guyana to kind of support parents, given the poverty our people is living in, given the cost of living. We just can't come on the show and talk about it. I feel, at some point you have to actually be about it and not just talk about it. And I would like to thank all the individuals who would have contributed, to this drive. And we're looking forward to doing additional drives in the future. Listen, our country is at a crossroads right now. Our people, continue to punish and be impoverished. And we are not going to stand on the side and watch them, punish. We are going to give a lending hand because we are our brothers and sisters keeper. We will keep you guys informed as to where those bag distributions, are going to be. And over to you, Mark. I must say to the people, have a good evening, everyone. Be blessed.
Thank you so much, Wayne Caesar. Appreciate it. And to all of our listeners, indeed, we do whatever we have to do. And we appreciate those who assist us in doing what needs to be done. Thank you all. And well said, Mr. Caesar. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Mark. Good night.
Yeah. And again, thanks to all of you who are watching, wherever you're watching, whichever part of the world you are. If you're in Guyana, we appreciate the fact that you take time out to ensure that we are part of your evenings right here on 107.1 FM, where we deliver the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But before we go, got a couple of messages that there was an incident earlier I believe in Georgetown. And the incident occurred. I am yet to get more details about that. The incident occurred, and it happened to have been allegedly involved with a vehicle that I once owned. A vehicle, according to the police press statement, that was once owned by Mark Benschop, was involved in an incident, and I am yet to get more details about that. Now, come on, guys. If a vehicle that was once owned by anybody, whether it's Mark Benschop or whomever, how is that relevant to a police report? How is that relevant? A vehicle that was once owned by somebody becomes relevant. I don't know. I just don't get it at all. And it's you can tell the mischief, especially coming from the police, that a vehicle that was once owned by Mark Benschop, no longer owned by Mark Benschop. I don't know. That's just news just coming to me about the situation. I got to read into it, what's really happening. But I'm not surprised. A vehicle once owned by Mark Benschop. Once owned. There are vehicles, there are things that were owned by Hicken, Commissioner of Police Hicken, acting Commissioner of Police, who refused to move on. And you just sometimes wonder about these criminals in the Guyana police force. But we'll touch on that tomorrow evening. God bless you. See you all tomorrow, same place, same time, right here on 107.1 FM. God bless you. Have a great rest of the night. So long.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.